Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantam Manupitya Apitya Krityam Rapayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tan Maitaya Taravo Binedus Tam Sarvabhutam Hridayam Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Bhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshay Kiptastakamari Tarangamadye Kripamai Tam Sharanam Prapanda Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Tave Vasmi Najivami Tvayavina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. So, we're going to continue hearing the beautiful Krishna book, written by Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. And we've been hearing about Krishna, not that, Krishna, there we go, blessing the wives of the Brahmanis. Right? So we first offer our most humble obeisance unto our beloved Guru, Srila Prabhupada, our Shiksha Guru, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, all the assembled Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis. So, when we left off, Krishna had welcomed the Brahmanis, the wives of these Brahmanis, who had brought gifts in the form of foodstuffs that they had personally cooked for the yajna, but this is not like some restaurant food. Whatever they had done, these are greatly advanced devotees who had been meditating on Krishna with deep love for so long, which is why Krishna was drawn to this place in the first, and arranged that their lunch, that they would not go to where their lunch was going. They went to a different place, so the rendezvous with the lunch did not take place. So on the pretext of hunger, he had his cowherd boyfriends go beg from the Brahmanas at the yajna. When they ignored the cowherd boys came back disappointed. Krishna smiled and said, "Oh, that's the nature of begging. Oftentimes you are not successful. Don't worry, now go to the wives." And they went to the wives. As soon as the wives heard the names of Krishna, they became overjoyed. For so long they had been meditating and thinking about him. Now they had an opportunity to go and personally serve him, giving up all family connection, knowing that once they left, they would never be allowed back. They ran to Krishna with all the food that they had cooked with deep love, because they were always thinking of Krishna. And even though their husbands were performing yajna for elevation of every planets, their every sacrifice, their every thought, their every move was for the satisfaction of Krishna. This is how they were aligned. They were completely aligned in deeply developed prema. So, then they saw Krishna. We had heard a beautiful description of Krishna's form. And they pulled him into their heart through their eyes, right? And Krishna was very happy. He also pulled them into his heart with his eyes. Both were very happy. So then Krishna welcomed them with sweet words, and then spoke something which caused them great pain. Because after giving up everything and more or less getting a one-way ticket to Vrindavan, they crossed the border from Mathura to Vrindavan, and it was a one-way ticket. And he told them, oh, you should go back. Right? So, let's see, where were we? Every time I open it up, it shoots to a different page. So Krishna had spoken to them. One thing he says is that one who neglects all the hindrances and restrictions of worldly life and comes to me, that person is most fortunate. That person actually knows their real self-interest, because rendering transcendental loving service unto me without motive or restriction is actually auspicious for the living entities. In other words, Krishna, the original form of God, is the source of all creation, spiritual creation and this material creation. Everything, the identity of the soul, and actually I was listening to, 7th chapter in Jaiva Dharma today, where that Chandidas, this gold merchant, and his wife, Damayanti, had been kicked out of their house by their avaricious sons because these two were also very greedy and miserly their whole life. But they had the good fortune to go to Nabadweep with a Vaishnavi, and then deciding to live there, they came into the association of one Vaishnav Brahmana, Yadavadas, who took them to Godrum to hear the Babajis there. And they got instruction that about Dharma, about identity, right? And the actual identity of everyone, every living entity, is part and parcel of Krishna. Right? And that advancement in spiritual life comes the greater we give up the connection with the false identification, the body and everything connected with the body, the mind, the friends, the relatives, the separate interest, the more we come towards Krishna. Right? It's a gradual process, but we have to understand that. And so this is what Krishna is saying, that all these other interests, these are insignificant. Very difficult, though, to give them up, and you have done that. Right? And Srila Prabhupada says that Krishna confirmed that the conditioned soul can reach the highest perfectional stage by surrendering to him. And one must give up all other responsibilities. Right? Complete surrender to Krishna. And then we heard that where he was saying that we all love ourselves according to our advancement of knowledge. And most people are conditioned, and so they have an improper conception of self. That they identify with the body, the mind, etc. But one who knows their spiritual identity truly, then their love can reach perfection in connection with Krishna. So Krishna's told them all of that, right? You've surrendered to me, you've given up everything, that's appropriate, right? And then he said, now you can return to your homes. Engage yourselves in sacrificial activities and in the service of your husbands and household affairs, so that your husbands will be pleased with you and the sacrifice which they've begun will be properly executed. What? After giving up everything and acknowledging and praising that, now he's telling him to go back to the same situation? But he's giving a little explanation. Your husbands are householders, and without your help, how can they execute their prescribed duties? The husbands are worldly minded. They're dependent on their wives to perform the duties that are meant to gradually elevate them. And by Krishna's blessings, they are going to be made aware of Krishna's identity as Bhagavan, even though they have shortcomings in their devotion, and they're going to need their wives to continue that and make their own lives auspicious. Now, the wives, obviously, are quite upset at hearing this instruction, and they reply. I believe this is where we left off. The wives of the Brahmanis replied, "Oh, dear Lord, this sort of instruction does not befit you. Your eternal promise is that you will always protect your devotees, and now you must fulfill this promise. Anyone who comes and surrenders unto you never goes back to the conditioned life of material existence. We expect that you will now fulfill your promise. We have surrendered unto your lotus feet, which are covered by tulsi leaves. So we have no desire to give up the shelter of your lotus feet and return to the company of our so-called relatives, friends, and society. And what shall we do if we return home? Our husbands, brothers, fathers, sons, mothers, and friends will no longer accept us at home because we have already left them all. Therefore, we have no shelter to return to. Please, therefore, do not ask us to return home, but arrange for our stay under your lotus feet so that we can eternally live under your protection. Right? Because they're thinking, because they have love for Krishna in the mood of Madhurya Ras, Shringar Ras, they see Krishna as their beloved, and they left their husbands. By worldly point of view, they could never go back, right? It's just they violated chastity. Remember, just before this, we heard about the young Brajakumaris who also were ordered by Krishna in a way to show that they have also abandoned chastity and that they had come to the highest level of understanding their eternal spiritual relationship with Krishna. He's saying, if you truly, truly accept me completely as your beloved with no other reservation, then even give up any attachment to chastity, even any identification with the body that it's yours, right? That it's your body to be ashamed of. I am asking you to raise your hands above your head. You're unclothed. Show yourself completely to me without any hesitation. And they did it because they had given up everything. Whatever Krishna wants, we will do that. There are so many subtle layers of surrender there that you have to analyze and understand, right, in that action. And here, they're being asked also to go back. And there's going to be a subtle form of surrender there. That's very complicated. The young Brajakumaris also had to go back and go back to their homes and even take husbands. But their hearts were completely transformed and purified so that even though they may have appeared to have husbands and worldly responsibilities, their entire life had now become so purified that it was only and always about Krishna, completely. So here Krishna is giving them an order also, because he has a particular desire in his teaching in society. So they say, you'll always protect us. We want to stay here and be under your protection. So Krishna is going to reply, my dear wives of the Brahmanis, rest assured that your husbands will not neglect you on your return, nor will your brothers, sons, or fathers refuse to accept you, because you are my pure devotees. Not only your relatives, but also people in general, as well as the demigods, will be satisfied with you. Krishna is situated as the supersoul in everyone's heart. So someone who becomes a pure devotee of Lord Krishna immediately becomes pleasing to everyone. The pure devotee of Lord Krishna is never inimical to anyone, nor can any sane person be an enemy of a pure devotee, any sane person. There are persons who are disturbed, who criticize and find fault and are envious of pure devotees, even people who are trying to practice bhakti. If you develop that mentality to a pure devotee, you are insane. Srila Prabhupada is saying that. You're insane. You may have a position, you may have a post, you may have a title, you may have recognition and honor in a community of some other devotees, Kanishta devotees, but in the eyes of Krishna, if you are inimical towards a pure devotee, what is your position? These are Krishna's near and dear. And if you can't recognize that, it's not that you have to be a direct follower of that person. There are many groups, many pure devotees. Srila Prabhupada says, in his Nectar of Instruction, Sri Upadesh Amrita's commentary on the work of Srila Rupa Goswami, that there are many pure devotees and societies of pure devotees, and one may take shelter of any of them to make advancement in Krishna consciousness. And from the time of Mahaprabhu, there have been so many branches on the tree of Mahaprabhu, and people, according to their level, according to of advancement, and also according to their specifically developing taste and mood of service, will find attraction in one direction or another, one place or another. That's fine. There's no harm in that. Krishna is unlimited. Even other religions we don't criticize. Bhaktivinoda Thakur made that very clear, that people will be in a particular religion according to their adhikar. In one or two or many lifetimes they may be in this religion or that religion, but religion is understood according to the development of pure dharma that is reflected in the teachings and in the practices of those persons. Ultimately, the ultimate religion or the ultimate practice is that of the gopis. Not even a Mother Jashoda, not even the cowherd boys. I mean, they're eternally, this is Braj. Don't misunderstand this. I'm just saying that Ramya Kachad Upasana Brajavadu Vargena Jal Kalpita. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that ultimately the highest expression of love of Krishna is coming in the practices and actions of love of the Brajavadus, the gopis, right? So, and Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni, no, not that, Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam Prema Pumarto Mahan. This evidence is given in Srimad Bhagavatam, right? And this kind of love that the gopis experienced is the highest, right? The highest. And this is the opinion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, we don't care for any other opinion. So, the pure devotee of Lord Krishna is never inimical to anyone. Doesn't mean they don't have differences of opinion. I saw a series of quotes, letters, from Srila Prabhupada talking about how his godbrothers and he sometimes argue and have differences of opinion. But he's talking to his young disciples and saying, don't worry about that. This is the nature of transcendental life. These arguments and disagreements are not on the mundane platform. So don't consider that. We may have differences, we may criticize each other. Don't you do that. Don't you do that. All my devotees, all my godbrothers are deeply devoted to our Guru Maharaj, and they're all dedicated their life and soul to his servant. These differences are of no matter, right? So, Krishna is never inimical to anyone, nor can any sane person be an enemy of a pure devotee. Quote, Krishna speaking, transcendental love for me does not depend upon bodily connection. And Krishna continues, but anyone whose mind is always absorbed in me will surely very soon come to me for my eternal association. So he's saying, you just stay in that same mood which drew me here to you in the first place. Always thinking of me. Man mana, right? Always mava bad bhakto. You're my devotees. Now, go even deeper in always thinking of me with love. After being instructed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the wives returned home to their respective husbands. Pleased to see their wives back home, the Brahmanis sat together with them and executed the performances of sacrifices as enjoined in the Shastras. According to Vedic principle, religious rituals must be executed by the husband and wife together. When the Brahmanas' wives returned, the sacrifice was duly and nicely executed. Even Lord Ram wanted to do a very big yajna year after year, and his guru, Vasishta, told him, well, you have to bring Sita back, because without her you can't do it. He said, I can't. This will violate my dharma as a king. Then you should get married again. No, that will violate my devotion to her. I know she's faultless. I will never marry anyone else. So they made an arrangement where they would create a deity of Sita, so it was non-different from Sita. And that deity would sit in the sacrifice. Golden form, looked just like Sita, and actually they were alive. They were alive. They weren't, they just, and they fulfilled that role. And when it was time for Lord Ram to leave, they said, what about us? Can't leave without us. And they were given a divine destination as well.
I'm sorry, why were there many?
What?
I forget, why were there many Sitas instead of one golden Sita?
The Sitas? Because he had to have one every year.
Every year, new one.
Yeah, one new one every year. So there are lots of them. Because he wasn't really, none of them were his wife, but they were the deity sitting in. So if they had the same one every year, it would sort of be an acknowledgement that this is Sita. But this is Pratibhu Sita that they had to install, So, now, so they returned, but one of the Brahmanas' wives, however, who had been forcibly checked from going to see Krishna, began to remember him as she heard of his bodily features. Being completely absorbed in his thought, she gave up her material body, conditioned by the laws of nature. So these wives had deep, sometimes we say prem, but more accurately, it would be deeply developed bhav, because they still had some material connection with their husbands and families, etc. Right? But this wife now gave up that body, just like the wives who were kept, the gopis who were kept from the Rasa Leela dance, those that had children, they also had to give up that body. And they were given a spiritual body, and a semblance of that form was left in the house. And in their pure spiritual body, they could run to the Rasa Leela. Right? So, material body can't hold fully developed prem. It can't do that.
These Brahmanas.
What?
These Brahmanas, does it say anywhere what they were talking about or what they were thinking while the wives were gone? Does it say anything?
No. That's all cleared out of their minds and hearts. They know they're going to be enlightened that this is Krishna, the Supreme Lord. Previously, they didn't accept that, but Krishna in their heart inspired them to realize that actually he's the Supreme Lord. And then they were acknowledging and very proud of their wives. This is what we've heard over the last many days from all the other different versions, from the Bhagavatam, from Ananda Vrindavan Champu, from Gopal Champu, and now Srila Prabhupada's going to explain it. After the departure of the Brahmana's wives, Sri Govinda and his cowherd boyfriends enjoyed the food they had offered. In this way, the ever-joyful personality of Godhead exhibited his transcendental pastimes in the guise of an ordinary human being in order to attract the common people to Krishna consciousness. With his words and beauty, he attracted all the cows, cowherd boys, and damsels in Vrindavan. All of them together enjoyed the pastimes of the Lord. Now, after the return of their wives from Krishna, the Brahmanas engaged in the performance of sacrifices, and they began to regret their sinful activities in refusing food to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They could finally understand their mistake. Engaged in the performance of Vedic rituals, they had neglected the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who had appeared just like an ordinary human being and asked for some food. So they've been inspired in the heart by Krishna's mercy, because he wanted to bless these wives and give them a condition that they could return and perfect their own bhajan, not sadhan. Now they're on the platform of deep bhajan, internal meditation on their eternal relationship with Krishna. But their husbands had to be enlightened to make this work. So they got enlightened to a certain extent. Now they're realizing, just as these cowherd boys had indicated, this Krishna, he's God. And we neglected him. We didn't even pay any attention to them. They began to condemn themselves after seeing the faith and devotion of their wives. They regretted very much that although their wives were elevated to the platform of pure devotional service, they themselves could not understand even a little bit of how to love and offer transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord. They began to talk among themselves. To hell with our being born Brahmanas. To hell with our learning all the Vedic literatures. To hell with our performing great sacrifices and observing all the rules and regulations. To hell with our family. To hell with our expert service in performing the rituals exactly according to the descriptions of the scriptures. To hell with it all, for we have not developed transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was beyond the speculation of the mind, body, and senses. The learned Brahmanis, expert in Vedic ritualistic performances, were properly regretful. Because if one does not develop Krishna consciousness, all discharge of religious duties is simply a waste of time and energy. Right. That's in the Bhagavatam, right? First canto, second chapter. What is it? Dharma sunishtita pungsa vishvakshena katasuya notparayad yariratim shrama eva hi kevalam. Right? That everything, all religious activities are meant for the satisfaction of the Lord. Without that, it's simply a waste of time. Right? They continued to talk among themselves. The external energy of Krishna is so strong that it can create illusion to overcome even the greatest mystic yogi. Although we are expert Brahmanis and are considered to be the teachers of all other sections of human society, we also have been illusioned by the external energy. Just see how fortunate these women are. They have so devotedly dedicated their lives to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, that they easily did what is ordinarily so difficult. They gave up their family connections, which are just like a dark well, for the continuation of material miseries. Now listen to this. Women in general, so Srila Prabhupada says this, women in general, being very simple at heart, can very easily take to Krishna consciousness. And when they develop love of Krishna, they can easily get liberation from the clutches of Maya, which are very difficult for even so-called intelligent and learned men to surpass. Now, being raised with a Western conception, if you hear that, women in general being very simple at heart, that sounds, that's very condescending, simple at heart, but actually it's a great, praise. Simplicity at heart means uncluttered, right, by unnecessary considerations, and being able to quickly get to the heart of a matter, right? Advanced Brahmanas, advanced Vaishnavas, male or female, are simple at heart. Right? And generally men being very in the conditioned state, being right-brained, right? Everything has to be analyzed, considered, very, organized, structured fashion, which is very effective for certain kinds of service and certainly for getting around to the world. But simple at heart means, Krishna's God, and as soon as you hear about that, very much attracted. That's a great advantage. The gopis are the highest example. They're very simple at heart. All they considered was, how can I be with Krishna? How can I serve Krishna? They were uncluttered by other considerations. It's actually a great praise, right? But there's also the consideration, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes this in Bhakti Tattva Vivek, and also in Jaiva Dharma, that there are different kinds of experiences of the symptoms of bhav, or spiritual emotion. There's, in the developing stage, there's chaya bhakti abhas, bhava abhas, and there's pratibimba bhakti and bhava abhas. Chaya means it's developing, but it's not fully developed. It's like a shadow, like a tree has a shadow. The shadow is connected to the tree, but it's not a full representation of the tree, but it has some connection. He describes this as simple and innocent, right? It's not full and pure bhav, complete, but it's not duplicitous. But pratibimba is what, like a reflection, like in a body of water, you can see the sun reflected. Looks like the sun, but it has no real connection with the sun. So Mayavadis and personalist, materialistic people will sometimes experience emotions, right, which seem to be the same as emotions of great Vaishnavas, but their intent or motive is very different. Right? They're not. Their emotions are not based on how I'm connected and pleasing the Lord. Their emotions are based on, just chanting this Hare Krishna mantra, this holy name, doing bhakti, I can very quickly achieve impersonal liberation, merge into God, and become one. Right? So that's impure. That's to be rejected. So in that description, he also says that women have very soft hearts. So they also can be seen to display emotion very easily, right? They can cry very easily in kirtan or hearing things and all, but that doesn't necessarily mean advanced spiritual emotion. It's soft heart. And even, male devotees, we also have, when we think about our gurus and practice of bhakti and many things, we can also have some emotion and some tears, but that doesn't mean it's the pure, evolved and fully developed spiritual experience. But women are more soft-hearted, so they more easily express emotion, right? And that's a benefit. Srila Prabhupada always talked about how in the churches, it's always ladies in the church, old ladies especially. They like to go to church, Men only go to church like when there's a great catastrophe, right? Times of war. Then the churches fill up, right? Otherwise, they just like to sleep in. Not all men. I'm just making a generalization. Women are much more inclined to general religion. And so they're praising the soft hearts, the spiritually developed hearts of their wives, and thinking, we were so proud by our learning, by our competency in ritual and sacrifice, and we're respected in society. But what do we know? Our simple-hearted wives who appear not to be educated, they know so much more than us. They're so much more elevated than us. And that's true in contemporary Vaishnava society as well. We have men, we have women. There are women who are so advanced. They don't make a show of it. They may not be leaders in the traditional way, but they may be very advanced. The Brahmanis continued, according to Vedic injunction, women are not allowed to undergo the purificatory process of initiation by the sacred thread, nor are they allowed to live as brahmacharinis in the ashram of the spiritual master, nor are they advised to undergo the strict disciplinary procedures, nor are they very expert in discussing the philosophy of self-realization. And by nature, they are not very pure, nor are they very much attached to auspicious activities. Not very pure means because of household duties, taking care of kids who are slobbering all over and spilling food everywhere. They're not always taking 3 baths a day and clean like Brahmanas, right? They have different duties, right? So they have so many things they have to do. They can't live like us. But, nevertheless, how wonderful it is that these women have developed transcendental love for Krishna, the Lord of all mystic yogis. They have surpassed all of us in firm faith and devotion unto Krishna. although we are considered to be masters in all purificatory processes, we did not actually know what the goal is because we are too much attached to the materialistic way of life. Even though we were reminded of Krishna and Balaram by the cowherd boys, we disregarded them. We now think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead simply played a trick of mercy on us by sending his friends to beg food from us. Otherwise, he had no need to send them. He could have satisfied their hunger then and there just by willing to do so. Yes, they've understood. That was the purpose. We've gone about as long as I want to go. Let me see. Can I? Another page. I'm just going to read the rest of this without commentary. It'll be a little longer than usual, but we should finish this chapter. So the Brahmanis continue. All right, so he could have, commentary here, he could have satisfied them and their hunger just by willing it, but this is all a pastime, a leela to accomplish something. The sweetness of Krishna. His pastimes do everything. Not by formal teaching and instruction, but by sweet, sweet pastimes he's teaching. So, Srila Prabhupada says, if someone denies the self-sufficiency of Krishna on hearing that he was tending the cows for his livelihood, or if someone doubts of his not being in need of the food, thinking that he was actually hungry, then such a person should understand that the goddess of fortune is always engaged in his service. Okay. In this way, the goddess can break her faulty habit of restlessness. In Vedic literatures like the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that Krishna is served in his abode with great respect by not only one goddess of fortune, but by many thousands. Therefore, it is simply illusion for one to think that Krishna begged food from the Brahmanas. It was actually a trick to show them mercy by teaching them that they should accept him in pure devotional service instead of engaging in ritualistic ceremonies. He's having mercy on them as well. In this life, they were maybe ritualistic Brahmanas, but they had seeds of Sukriti. Otherwise, how could they have pure devotee wives and be born in Mathura? So, they're so misled. Let me show them mercy. The Vedic ceremony paraphernalia, the suitable place, the suitable time, the different grades of articles for performing the ritualistic ceremonies, the Vedic hymns, the process of sacrifice, the priest who is able to perform the sacrifice, the fire, the demigods, the performer of the sacrifice, and the religious principles are all meant for understanding Krishna. For Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the Supreme Lord Vishnu and the Lord of all mystic yogis. He mentioned all that in the beginning and gave the Sanskrit terms for those. Now, the Brahmins say, because he has appeared as a child in the dynasty of the Jadus, we were so foolish that we could not understand that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But on the other hand, we are very proud because we have such exalted wives who have developed pure transcendental service of the Lord without being shackled by our rigid opposition. Let us therefore offer our respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, under whose illusory energy called Maya we are absorbed in fruitive activities. We therefore pray to the Lord to be kind enough to excuse us because we are simply captivated by his external energy. We transgressed his order without knowing his transcendental glories. So Srila Prabhupada concludes by saying, the Brahmanas repented their sinful activities. Sinful to reject the request of Krishna's pure devotees. Sinful and offensive. They wanted to go personally to offer their obeisance unto him. But being afraid of Kamsa, they could not go to Krishna and surrender unto him. They didn't have the same faith as their wives, right? In other words, it is very difficult for one to surrender fully unto the personality of Godhead without being purified by devotional service. The example of the learned Brahmanis and their wives is vivid. The wives of the Brahmanis, because they were inspired by pure devotional service, did not care for any kind of opposition. They immediately went to Krishna. But the Brahmanis, although they had come to know the supremacy of the Lord and were repenting, were still afraid of King Kamsa because they were too much addicted to fruitive activities. So there it is. Even they understood. And these Brahmanis, not only did they went back to Mathura, but it's described by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that this Brahmani that was mentioned that did not get to go, and also Kavikanapur, that she went to Krishna in her spiritual body and was accepted by Krishna and enjoyed with him there in Vrindavan, right, unseen by others. So she was able to enter into Vrindavan in that rarefied female form to enjoy with him there, unimpeded by this other conception of him as God. And then when she went back, she had her spiritual form. It appears like a material form, but she became like the guru for the others, so that they could perfect their meditation as well. Because they were not like the husbands. The husbands, as all Mathuravasis, had some conception of Krishna as the Supreme Lord, as the avatar, right? But these Brahmanis, even though they took birth in Mathura, were able to go to the other side and perfect their love in the mood of Brajbasis, right? By seeing Krishna in that way and then perfecting their service internally by continued hearing about him and by the association of one who had perfected herself, right? So, thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 23rd chapter of Krishna, delivering the wives of the Brahmanas who performed sacrifices. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to you, Srila Gurudev. All glories to our Upanuga Guru Varga. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.